A new political battle line is taking shape inside the Democratic Party, and it is starting in New York.
I think we are seeing a hunger that is not just felt by New Yorkers, but frankly by Americans from coast to coast for a new kind of politics, one that puts working people at the heart of it. I think a democratic socialist can get elected anywhere across this country for any position. What I think we need to bring is a focus on working people.
Mamdani-backed socialist candidates went undefeated in the primaries, and now party leadership is adjusting. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries publicly embracing them on X, saying that, quote, the path is different, but the work is the same. Caroline, desperate for your thoughts on why the younger generation thinks that this is a good idea.
Well, I think first some background is this is a cheap counterfeit for the MAGA movement. This is not a working class revolution that President Trump delivered in his first term, with the tax cuts delivering real wage growth to lower income middle class families, as well as increase in household income. What this is a movement led by disgruntled, downwardly mobile Gen Z millennial elites who are resentful at society that it hasn't given them the rewards that they think they deserve. It's not working class, because the poor minorities don't want this, especially those who have lived experience from communist countries, those who are Hispanic. They're generally not voting for this. It is those who graduated from Bowdoin College, from the NESCAC schools, who came from money. Karl Marx was pretty comfortable. Karl Marx's parents owned vineyards. And in a letter, I found this circulating on Twitter, his father blasted him by saying, you are so bitter, you had everything handed to you. This is Karl Marx's father, and yet you are advocating for this revolutionary, radical idea because you're simply just jealous and you don't realize how great you have it. That's what this movement is driven by, and it's a lot of the kids who maybe took on student loan debt for degrees that don't have a ton of industrial value. They're trying to live the dream in New York City, and they don't understand why they can't afford rent. So it is very much a blue city bubble idea. Will it have any kind of, will it be bought up by the rest of the country? I don't think so, but it is significant that this is the center of gravity for Democratic politics here in New York City, not just the fringe that, comes out in the primaries. Chuck Schumer's from here. Hakeem Jeffries. That's why I think this is scaring them so much, because New York is like their epicenter of politics, period. So it'll be interesting to see what the implications are.
Jackie, we have long debated if this is going to be national, if this is a national concern. Was this a gift to Republicans? Should this scare Republicans? Who benefits from this? Curious how you think about how this plays on a national stage when Mamdani says he thinks socialists can be elected anywhere at any time.
At first, I didn't think that it would have national, girth, but I can debate the other side of that and see how it could, where people feel lost and they have nothing to grab onto. The messaging all of a sudden sounds good from the socialists. It was Bill de Blasio that was on Newsroom today, and he kept hammering home this message, his message, of Trump's affordability crisis. And that is part of the problem, is what's happening right now is being painted by the Democrats, especially to the youth who, no offense to you and Gen Z, they're not always so informed, and they haven't lived through and experienced both sides of it to understand how things work. So, for example, under de Blasio is when this city started to really decline. So for him to stand there and blame Joe Biden's affordability crisis on Donald Trump is pretty rich. At the same time, Mamdani is saying, I'm campaigning for the working people. But if you think back to Rudy Giuliani and tax cuts and more balanced budgets and a safer city, that was when the city was thriving the most, as opposed to what we're dealing with now. So I think there's a lot of misinformation out there. I talked to some Gen Z people, and if you have a debate with them, a conversation about it, they'll say something, I'll come back at them with something, and then they don't have a rebuttal because they're not informed enough to be able to. No, I'm not saying you are one of the smartest people. But they don't have a rebuttal for it, which leads me to believe there's like a serious gap of understanding out there, and it's the young people right now that have a lot of power with this vote.
Lou, it was fascinating to me. I was reading this from Unleash Prosperity. They took it from the Journal, talking about Britain. After World War II, Britain won won through steady economic decline by embracing socialism. By the 1970s, they'd handed over to public bureaucrats and unions means of production. The Bank of England, coal mines, airlines, iron, steel, phone service, all just to name a few. Prices soared, nothing worked, Brits got poorer, and Britain's share of world output declined from 11% to 4%. And yet it seems like we don't care about all of the lessons that socialism has told us. We want to still try it our way.
I don't know that it's we don't care. It's that not enough people care. And to Jackie's point, and to Caroline, like not enough young people are like yourself that dig in and ask the facts because the feelings feel so good. I mean, I watched that with disgust. He says there's a hunger for this. No, there's not. There's not a hunger to rob from Peter to pay Paul, right? To steal from the rich and give to those. It doesn't work. You said it. There's a historical precedent. You can look chapter after chapter, every time it's been implemented, whether it's the UK, whether it's a wealth tax in Maryland, it doesn't work. This is a rallying cry, not a real solution to the K-shaped economy that we have. So, I mean, this is an example we talked about earlier. The government has shed 350,000 jobs under President Trump. And what are the Democrats and the Democratic Socialists asking for? More taxes, because they can do it if they just get more money. They can't do anything efficiently. The answer is in the free markets. The problem is I don't think we've educated enough in our institutions about capitalism and the benefits. Right. Bring the immigrants that came from these Latin American countries that were under communism and socialism and have them present in front of high school and go, let me tell you how awesome it is.
Where the immigrants in New York are going back to Cuba because they saw they're fleeing communism. Right.
You know, the president got in trouble for saying they were eating cats and dogs. Well, in Venezuela, they did start resorting to certain things like that because when you take away all means of free markets, that's what happens. It collapses. So, unfortunately, younger generations have to learn like we learned too from our experiences. And unfortunately, we're going to have to suffer along.
Yes, but their vote counts a lot, and it's unfortunate to have to live in the city right now through this.
It's good marketing. I don't know, there's no substance.
As the Wall Street Journal points out in one of its editorials, that so far, kind of the opposite of Hakeem Jeffries, you know, congratulating these three socialist insurgents, only 10 House members have been willing to step up and oppose the Democrat socialist agenda. So 10, including Tom Suozzi from Long Island, have signed on to what they call the Promise to America. So, but I think that there will be a growing chorus, not just from the Democrat Party and people who consider themselves to be progressive or liberal, but from the center and from the right, to speak out against people who openly hate Jewish people, because that is what they represent more than anything. Government takeover and hatred of the Jews. That is not who we are as a nation. And then in terms of policy, you mentioned Mayor de Blasio. I'm surprised that he'd show his face.
I know, I was.
But he, at every turn, he was asked about the Dan Goldman and the issue with being online attacked by this coffee shop. He went, I don't know what that is. He said he didn't know what happened with him. And again, he was attacked online because he's Jewish. Photograph taken of him when he was with his 7-year-old daughter. De Blasio claimed ignorance. When asked about low turnout from the Democrats with these primary races, dismissed it. When talking about Mondani, he won by a squeaker as mayor, dismissed it, said, his approval ratings are soaring, he's so popular. Well, his actual job approval, formal job approval, just looking at the Emerson poll from April, he had 43% job approval, so it's not 50%, which would be high, but 30% were neutral. So 27% disapproval, and then 30% were like, eh. So there you go. There's 57% were like, I don't approve of his job performance, or I have no opinion. So not a rousing endorsement of Mondani. There's one other story I'll just quickly point to, because this is the warning. And this kind of happened before the rent freeze that was introduced last week in New York City. Sergey Brin, one of the co-founders of Google, had to sell. He took a stake in an investment in rent-stabilized apartments, and he had to sell that investment. It was a rental investment for pennies on the dollar. So when you have capital that flees your city, that will not invest in rental apartments, say so long, because that's when the city moves in and you wind up living in city housing. And we know what city housing is like. And that's really what they want, but it's not what the voters think they're getting.